Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted. I'm your host, ObjectivelyDan. This is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central, where we talk to people about what they believe and why. I also have a very special guest this week, and my very special guest this week is Joey Krieger. Joey, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and so Joey, you're kind of a special case, my friend. And here's the reason why. So originally we did have a different guest on for this week. And about a week ago they had to cancel, and that happens sometimes on the show. And so I'm trying to go through figuring out what to do. And Joey, I've known you for about 2 years now. You're a friend of mine. You actually called into the show a couple weeks ago as well, but right as I was figuring out the news, we need to find another guest, you sent me this video that you were in that got almost 500,000 views now, about 500,000 views on a channel called Jubilee. And it's called 6 Atheists versus 1 Secret Christian. So I posted this on social media before the show, and I hope you guys checked it out. If not, we're going to have a link to that in the description. I suggest you guys watch it if you're listening to this, the later recorded version of this first, before we go into this conversation. If you haven't seen it yet and you're watching this live, basically it's like a game show you were a part of, right?
Like an internet game show. I mean, so I have a friend who was on a previous one of their videos that sort of like set it up and just like, hey, they need atheists for a thing. And I did the interview and we did it, and it was a strange experience, as expected.
Yeah. So the idea of this game show was that there are 7 people in this Zoom call, and one of them is secretly a Christian narc, I guess.
And
exactly. And the rest are atheists, and everybody has to figure out who the Christian is, and you have to eliminate each other each round. Of course, you're one of the contestants, and I joked you're playing atheist cop.
I was the absolute gatekeeper. The thing was, it was like everyone said in the comments, if you don't read books, then you could still be an atheist. And so I'm here to tell you, if you haven't read every single book that I've read, you are not an atheist. I just needed to put that out there.
About the fact, like, they liked astrology and stuff, and you were playing hardball. You were like, what's an atheist doing believing in astrology? Like you were doing this whole thing. But anyway,
I wanted to just vote them all out and be the last one standing, honestly.
It's not just I got you on because I know you, and this was a fun thing seeing you on this video that got 500,000 views, but I think this represents a part of a change in our culture, really. And I was kind of interested in this conversation of like this video existing on the internet and having so many people watch it. That was not a thing like 20 years ago. People were super not casually talking about it like you were in this video. And this channel features a lot of different kind of religious perspectives on different things and stuff as well. But I also noticed too that the people who were represented as atheists, I gotta say I was impressed. Pretty diverse group of people. Not all just ex-Christians either. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of passive atheists, which I guess I have mixed feelings about. Like, it's cool. I knew a bunch of these people in high school. Like, their parents didn't raise them with any religion, and you ask them, and they're like, I don't know what. It's just a weird thing that some people do, and like I live my life. I do. I think the importance of grappling with the big existential important questions of what it means to live a good life and to be a human and to love and that we're going to die and all that stuff, like so overwhelmingly important that I can't help but wanting to like dig deeper into that. But I guess that is a step forward for society, that there are people that can just exist and not worry about that at all. Like, they don't need to label themselves in any way. They could just be.
Because first of all, I want to say too, they really undersold you, because you identified as a secular humanist and stuff, and they played that clip, but they didn't even talk about the fact you literally worked with Bart Campolo, like the secular humanist, right? Like, you know him and you've done stuff with him, and like, you're a smart guy. I mean, we first met. We met at the Secular Student Alliance conference in 2018. And you've been involved with a lot of different groups on your campus and stuff, and you've been doing stuff since college as well. But like, you were definitely, out of the group that was on screen, you were definitely the more activist type, arguably out of what I saw, probably the most of the activist type. So I reckon I had solidarity with you there as far as like, what are these other people talking about? But
but and there's a lot of like treating it like a religion, and it's like, wait,
right?
We kind of do, and that's okay.
This is what I want to talk about. Like, is this a good thing that we have other people now who are way more comfortable calling themselves atheists, but don't like talk about it the same way that we do? Like they're not as interested in sort of the subjects. Like they were making fun of you a little bit because you were talking about books, right? You were saying like, oh, what books have you read? And it's like, oh, I didn't know I need to read a book to be an atheist. That was the line that came up, which is true. Like that's just a fact. But also, like, what does that mean when our country broadly becomes more secular, but doesn't have the same kind of critical positions that you or I might have? I'm wondering if this is a good thing, right? Like, what do you think?
I think I was thinking about this a lot after, because I did what everyone's not supposed to do and just read the comments and go, oh my gosh.
You shouldn't read the comments. They were saying, there was a funny line. I will say this. Everybody was saying that guy couldn't be atheist because he looks like Jesus. And I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah.
But this idea, I would honestly, my view would be decided by what views you hold. Like if you believe in astrology, if that makes you more likely, or if that creates like some slippery slope that is some way measurable, that makes you believe in things that like maybe vaccines aren't real, or like because of course I want to push back against beliefs that are illogical or irrational or just untrue or like weirdly disprovable or unverifiable. And I see like a connection between something like that and something harmless to society. Like I would argue astrology is, as much as it rubs me the wrong way. It's probably still harmless to society. But you could go up the levels of like, people who say, hey, I am talking to your dead relative, give me your money. That's a bit more harmful. It seems a bit more exploitative, and you go up the ladder of things that are bad to believe.
There's definitely like a hierarchy. I think you're right there. But it's almost like
what hill do we die on? And
what hill do we die on? Exactly, because I think they talked about this in the video. I don't know, but I've met atheists who believe in karma. Like I think that's a sentiment I have heard other atheists kind of express, and maybe
in what way?
In the sense that they genuinely believe the universe will like give back what is due, like that there is a cosmic process. Like I've talked to people like that, and they're not on the internet, they're not on the videos and the comment sections that like you and I are talking about, right? They're people who are living their lives, just doing whatever, don't think about this stuff as much. Well, I don't want to say don't think about this stuff, but don't have the kinds of conversations that you or I might have about this kind of stuff, right? So it's like, is that, what do we do with the belief that ostensibly really does like the most minimum amount of harm? Because like, what's the most amount of harm that a secular person believing in karma can do? Obviously, a more stratified religious systems and stuff. That's literally how they have like these caste systems and stuff in India, right? Like there's harm there, but like in the United States, in Austin, Texas, just a rando, someone like you or me, just having that karma belief. Is there a harm there? Like, yes, maybe, but like, what is that? How do we measure that really? And like,
in terms of measurability, I would say that's nearly impossible.
Yeah.
But in terms of like if you could imagine a situation like justice will happen to them later instead of like, no, justice now is important.
That's true. That's true, because there is that kind of heaven's fallacy, right? That it like that just world fallacy of, well, he's not getting what he deserves now, but somehow the universe will give it to him. It's like, no, you're a judge. You need to decide that punishment now, or whatever it is, right? Yeah. But I see that too. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. Hopefully, callers, you can tell us your opinions on this, folks. The lines are pretty open right now. We want to talk to you guys about this, but this is something I want to talk about. This idea of like, is it okay for us to grow? Because I've always thought this, Joey, even before I've been as involved as I have, I always thought that the way that people are going to become atheists, because atheism is growing in this country, non-belief, right, is growing. It's not going to be through shows like mine. Broadly speaking, it's not. It's not going to be through Truth Wanted. I don't even think it's going to be through either Atheist Experience or anything else like that. I think it's going to be just people just either deciding not to go to church with their parents and then just kind of just drifting away. It's just kind of be gradual. I don't think it's going to be, oh, you know what? I read Christopher Hitchens and now I have this really fine comb system of how I'm measuring what's real and what's not real. I don't think it's this skepticism, like, through critical thinking. It's going to be just a really passive process. I think that's just,
when you say that, I wish I could go back in time and go through my whole Catholic confirmation process just to like really get a reading on what people believe. Because I wasn't like an atheist. I was like an agnostic, like, I'm not really sure, I'm open-minded. And there were other people there that were atheists. And but the vast majority of people were there to, like, I'm doing this so that grandma doesn't cry, like this is
you
just got to do it, because pushing back when I still live at home with my parents, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go through the motions.
There is a social ostracization that happens too, because typically if you are that person, you're probably going to be one of the only ones in the room, at least in my experience in Texas, right? Like, and maybe you'll find secular people too, but like they may not be willing to say that they're an atheist, or maybe they have an idea of what that word means that you or I wouldn't use. So like, I don't want people to passively accept my positions on things. I want people to have good reasons for being what they are. I don't think you should become an atheist because you think, just the idea of a Christian God is stupid. I don't know, like something as simple as that. Like, I mean, ostensibly I would agree with you, I guess, but like, it's not the same thing as like deconstructing Christianity as a theology, as a history, or even whatever. Now, granted, I don't do that for every single religion in the world, right?
Yeah.
But the same like principles I use to look at stuff, I'm using across the board. And I don't know if people are really doing that, right?
Yeah. I mean, because the big thing that you and I would probably be, what we would be different, or how we would differentiate ourselves from the rest of those groups is like what next, and why do what we do, specifically in terms of secular community. And it, I mean, that's so obvious to us why, but I mean, maybe that isn't, and maybe
it isn't.
I mean, I don't know how much your audience is familiar with the concept even of secular communities.
Well, hopefully the atheist community of Austin watchers enjoy the atheist community on some level, right? But I get what you're saying. Like, because I know at least one person who is broadly atheist, but believes in like conspiracy stuff, like vaccine conspiracy stuff, right? Like, I know people who have the ideas about just drugs in general that aren't scientifically found. There's these pockets of patchworks of different beliefs, and suddenly it's like the thing that I have in common with this person really isn't something that we share in common at all, because I used to have this binary idea of belief of, you're either a Christian or an atheist or an agnostic, somewhere in between, and you're like this person, or you're going to be like this person. But really, people are just way more complicated, and they have all these different patches of different ideas. And I try to avoid not being in that bubble myself, even just here at the atheist community of Austin, trying to remember, we talk about the same stuff every week. Sometimes, we'll toot the same horn, but a lot of people don't think like us, or they approach their non-belief way, way differently than how we talk about it. So yeah. I
mean, and there are plenty of people who consider themselves religious who the way they approach forming a worldview and what to believe on these variety of issues is like nearly identical to how we do it.
Right.
And
right.
And you're just like, well, how are you still holding on to that thing? Like, what? I mean,
yeah. So I feel this way too. It's like the progressive Christian that's like they're cool with.
I love them.
I love
some
progressive
of my best
Christians
friends are
as
progressive
well,
Christians,
but it doesn't make sense to me. And I'll say this: it's like if you came up to me and was like, "Yeah, I'm a progressive Scientologist. I know what Scientologists have said about like therapy in the past, but like I'm actually pro therapy. I think therapy is great." I'd be like, "That's great that you think therapy is awesome, but the foundations of everything else you believe, I still have like an issue with. Like, I don't want somebody to think that all people are good because the Bible says so. I want somebody to come to that conclusion based on really anything else. Like the foundations can really affect other things, even if ostensibly I might have something in common or agree with them on other things, right? So that's the problem. It is the foundations.
Yeah. I mean, and that's to get into the most people are good argument. That's like,
I don't believe that. But,
you don't?
Well, see, you might. It depends, because I know you are a secular humanist. That you're the kind that does believe in the inherent goodness of people. I don't know if I subscribe to that view anymore. I think I used to, but I don't know if everybody has the capacity to understand good like you and I would, and therefore, like, I don't know if they're capable of that inherent goodness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess a more specific way of approaching that is most people are like do not want what they believe to be an actively bad thing to happen in the world.
Yeah.
But I read this book called Humankind by Rutger Bregman. And it just brought a bunch of like really interesting points. It's like, it's kind of like, it feels like it reads like a pop psychology book. But it's still very, very fun. And it does really make you like think. I mean, because you know these people in your life who vote in ways that you may, abhor, and
sure.
But like, they're not like sadists, right? As far as I know, they want what's best for the world, in their own way. And you could look at the systems that the manufacturing consent that has resulted in the way that they think the way they do. And but still know that like the fundamental desire is there. And I think that's like the important, and that's like, the whole importance of Jonathan Haidt, The Righteous Mind, and why
I think everybody has an idea of what's good, and people are acting in their own interests in what they think is good, and but their idea of what's good is so skewed from what I might think is good that it looks like they're doing evil, but really they think what's doing good. Like, is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah.
You want to do some nuance there. Oh, real quick, because we want to get to calls in just a second, but I want to know your take.
I mean, that if man, I don't even know where to go.
You have enough time. I don't know. I'll say my view on it is I like that statement I just gave. I agree in principle, but I also think, like, I don't know. I do think ethics are constructed by humans. Like, I don't think if humans existed, or if humans didn't, if a sentient life weren't here on Earth, right, then the concepts of good and evil wouldn't make any sense. Like, if none of us experience suffering or displeasure in any way, then we wouldn't have any idea of like a right or wrong action, because we wouldn't be taking things away from people or giving things to people to increase pleasure or whatever, I guess, right? So, like, there are people in this world who either have a skewed sense of that, in the sense that it's not in everybody's best interest, or they really only just care about themselves or whatever. Like, I think there's enough of that in the world to make me think, like, oh, this idea of everybody's inherently good, I don't know I don't know if I believe it as hard as I used to. Like,
I think,
or maybe I'm conflating terms here. Maybe.
I think the reason I feel that it's important to internalize something like that is strategically in interpersonal conversations about difficult topics.
Yeah.
I think feeling that when approaching these things is the best way to convince people to think differently.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of vilification of the other side, and there's plenty to vilify. I'm not saying that, but in terms of once it comes to like an interpersonal, like you're sitting down over coffee with someone and you're trying to talk to them about, like, is it okay to be an atheist? Like all the hard conversations.
You have to ignore the shit that comes your way, right? I totally get that. Yeah, 100%. Like, you have to be contextually cordial, I would say, because I don't think you have to be cordial in every single context. But I think there's a lot of people that aren't and don't in ways that I think they could, where it's reasonable for them to be. If you're out in public and you don't want to be bothered, that's fine. But if you're going into a space where a conversation is warranted, then I think that I feel a duty to myself to be on my best behavior in these kinds of conversations, right? To not go full, talking points mode and just like, because I don't know. I know the kinds of people you've talked to too, Joey. It's like, like sometimes you feel like, oh, if only I could just school this person, but we know that doesn't work. Like there's enough evidence out there that shows it doesn't. We have to do it through other methods. We just have to do it through whether it's street epistemology or something like it. That's what I'm convinced of anyway. Yeah. But anyway, we went off on some tangents here, which I'm happy to talk to. You can tell Joey and I know each other a little bit, so a little bit different from a lot of the guests who, I've only know through kind of formal correspondence and stuff like that, which is nice. It's a little bit of a different vibe here on Truth Wanted, but we got some calls that I really want to get to. So do you want to get to some calls with here? All right, cool. So we're going to get to that. But right before we do that, I have to give thanks to our patron of the week. That's right, folks. Every single week, we have a patron that we like to give a shout out and give thanks to. And this week's patron is Jason. Thank you, Jason, for donating. And if you would like to support this show, you can do that on patreon.com/truthwanted. All the money to that goes towards supporting this show and just making it happen every single week. So thank you guys who support this show on Patreon. Really appreciate it. And now it's time to get to some calls. First, I want to talk to Laurie, who's calling in from Ohio. Laurie, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. Just chilling. Just chilling tonight. It's a cool vibe on Truth Wanted tonight.
Yeah, I was just calling in because I saw, talking about karma, and I'm a longtime atheist, so I don't believe in anything supernatural, but it just seems that, shit kind of turns out, like, good for people that are really shitty and, like, do shitty things. Like, when I was a kid, this little monster, he smashed our pumpkins. That's because we sold pumpkins, and he smashed them all over the road. Well, after he graduated and moved to Texas, he was ran over by one of those rollers, for the pavement. And I was just thinking, when I found that out, I was like, wow.
Wait, did he die?
And now he's smashed. Yeah, he died. He died.
Is that karma? Would that be an example of karma, though? Like does the punishment fit the crime?
Well, no.
If so, that's terrifying.
Pumpkins. No, listen. No. It wasn't just the pumpkins. He was a horrible person.
Okay.
He abused his wife. He was just a rotten person. No, I wouldn't wish death on somebody who just smashed them freaking.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty hardcore. No, you're good, Laura. You're good.
No, I'm pretty radical. I'm really radical, but damn, I'm not that radical.
Yeah, I was like, damn, Laurie wants justice for those pumpkins, but I just found it kind of like
ironic.
Poetic, right? Yeah.
You know, it was like poetic justice. But it's happened before, you know, with other things too. It's like, it's really like, you know, but I don't think there's anything supernatural. I just think that people get what they give, you know.
I think occasionally that does happen. I think we can point to anecdotes, but I don't know if that broadly happens to everybody. What do you think, Joey?
I think I could see the idea of karma existing in the way that if you treat people well, they tend to treat you well.
Yeah.
So Dan, imagine if when we met, I was just a jerk to you the entire time, and I was just pressing my veganism, and I was just trying to shove it down your throat. And would you be like, oh, I know someone who could be on the show? Like, there's a secular way of understanding karma and the way humans interact in the world. I don't think those involve asphalt rollers personally, but
we're talking about somebody that died here. We cannot. This is it's crazy. No.
But I do think there's something very human about latching on to these instances where something crazy happens. Like my friend and I wrote a song about this actually, where you're talking about like the guy who invented a Russian nerve agent called Novichok that was actually recently used.
Right.
He died from from Novichok, like getting into his body. Like
I heard about that.
Something like things like that. Yeah. We latch onto that, and there's of course a selection bias in there.
Yeah, because I yeah, definitely it's a selection bias, because like we can point to these little instances and stories and stuff, but also like we don't know the entire human continuum of somebody's life from birth to death, and like people can do good and bad things in that a lot of us would never know about either. So there's always going to be unknown variables there. We would never even know if it was a true justice given to them from their entire life, because like we just can't know. And like on top of that, I just obviously we don't believe in the supernatural, so I have no reason to believe that there's any kind of higher power or higher sort of cosmic justice going on. I think it's a narrative that we like to play into because it's useful for us as a society, like Joey was saying, for us to be nice to each other and for us to live like accordingly to these principles. But ultimately, I do think it's a construct. I am one of those people that thinks morals is just a construct of human beings, and I can't find a way to escape that. Honestly, I haven't found anything that would convince me otherwise of it. But I don't know, Laurie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it just, it's just a fluky thing, and it's happened more than once with me. People that were just shitty, and stuff happened that was really like, so, it just seemed like, wow, they got theirs. They finally got theirs. And I'm not, I'm a nice person. I get along with people. I do. I really do. And I care about people. But I have a real problem with go ahead.
I was wondering if you know any shitty people who died happily surrounded by loved ones.
No.
Oh, wow. Well, no. I mean, I guess that
I really don't know. I mean, a lot of people, like on their deathbed, they'll just like have this epiphany or something and say, oh, I cared about you. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me, The
other thing too is
their death or whatever.
At the end of the day, everybody has their own individual sense of justice. Like somebody would say that somebody had something coming to him. Like they talk about, we can go to the Bible here, or biblical times at least, when people were stoned for sex work. Like they saw that as a just punishment of people getting their just desserts. In today's world, no, we wouldn't. I mean, at least we wouldn't, right? Like we wouldn't think that that's just at all. So as long as the human idea of justice is in flux, it almost doesn't even make sense to have a karmic belief system at all. Like as long as there's no real standard to hold that by. That works across all times and cultures. So I don't know. Karma doesn't make sense to me. It's kind of bunk. So, but Laurie, thanks for calling in. I mean, that was Yeah.
Thanks for having my call. You guys have a great night and a good weekend.
You too. That was.
Thank you.
That was a wild start. I gotta say, I did. I thought we were going a different direction there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Karma. It's. I guess it can be harmful then, because, you know, we are the arbiters of justice. Human beings are, and if you have this idea that, oh, this is what's just for you, this is what you deserve, but we discover like 100 years later, hey, actually, our ideas about, like, you know, going back to the sex work example, we don't vibe with that anymore. Suddenly, the people committing what was justice is now doing the injustice.
Yeah.
And you can't change that after the fact. So, yeah. I don't know what there is to say there.
Yeah.
Also,
I mean,
you didn't push veganism on me. You literally had one conversation with me. I don't even know why you're joking about that. But,
I said hypothetically if I did.
Yeah, that's true. You did say hypothetically.
Then you'd be vegan earlier, and we would have.
Then then it'd be vegan earlier. Anyway, we got some other callers here we want to talk to. Let's talk to Carpe Diem calling in from Colorado, who wants to ask me something that I might go on a rant about, but we'll see. Carpe Diem, what's going on?
Well, to be completely honest, Dan, I just want to hear your rant. It's been months that you've been talking about wanting to talk about QAnon, and nobody calls you to talk about it. And the first conversation you guys were having about how secular way of thinking versus religious way of thinking. And I know there's a big intersect between the QAnon, conspiracists and religious people.
Yeah.
But technically, it's not necessarily a religious conspiracy, right? It's secular. It's just some really weird shit. But
you say technically, but there's QAnon churches out there. I don't know if you know about that,
right? So it's cultish, right?
Yeah. No.
So basically, I want to talk about that and how it has inspired, even without a direct supernatural component, lots of evil after what happened in the Capitol. So what do you think about that?
I'll tell you. So I think, like when I wanted to talk about like conspiracies and stuff on this show, I think people, at first kind of thought, oh, this was like, a fun thing to do. Like, oh, it's fun to explore kind of these kind of weird out there ideas. And yeah, that's true. Like that's a part of the reason why I talk about this, but also like, just because I've been beating this drum for a little bit now, like I see in these trends, I can point you back to a tweet where I made like, I don't know if it was a year ago now, but it was a while saying like, hey, we need to talk about QAnon stuff because stuff is going to happen. And like the Capitol stuff happened because of QAnon. Like I make no qualms about that. Like, I don't think if QAnon's influence hasn't been as large as it has, people would have been as motivated to act. And QAnon is weird because it's not, it's in a mass of different ideas, some religious, some not. But it's basically like if the Avengers of conspiracy theories all came together in one movie, like that's kind of what we're dealing with. So we're not just dealing with a single ideology or a single thought process that we can easily deconstruct. There's a lot of moving parts to it that make it really complex. I've been wanting to get some Q researchers on to talk about this more, and hopefully we'll be able to do it at a future episode. But from what I see now, and I've tried to say this too, Q isn't going to end now that Biden is president either. There's already people talking about stuff happening in March, and people are bringing in the sovereign citizen narrative of, the United States has actually been a corporation since 18 whatever that's owned by the City of London. That used to be just a sovereign citizen thing. Now I'm seeing Q people talk about it too, because it's like this movement of people that are finally reading all of the stuff that David Icke wrote down like 15 years ago, and other people who've talked about this and are just now kind of getting into it and aren't being fact checked on it, or if they are being fact checked, they just are in complete denial. So I don't know. I guess that's the start of my rant. I could literally talk about it for an hour, but it's not over. It's not going to be over. I think people should be wary of it, and people need to take it for the political force it is. We have more people who believe in QAnon in the House of Representatives right now than we have African Americans. Let's let that sink in. This is the country.
There was a lady. There was a lady that's been on the news a lot this week that apparently was one of the ones touting out the whole Hillary Clinton covered up the murder of a cop because she had a baby that was sacrificed or something like that. Right?
I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene has said some stuff like that, I think, but without, like it's just really strange. We live in very, very strange times. But like, we just have to be on the watch for this stuff. I really wish people got into this more and looked at what these people were talking about so that we could be prepared to talk about it when appropriate with people who are open to listening to this. Because I think we've been doing the wrong thing. I think we've been saying, oh, this is all stupid and this is dumb, but I don't think enough people are getting to the minutia so that people understand the reasons why. Because it's one thing to just say, oh, this is all dumb. It's another thing to say, let me explain to you why this isn't correct.
How many Q believers?
Go ahead, Joey.
Go ahead.
I was wondering how many Q believers you guys personally know.
I have
I know a bunch.
There's people that I know who kind of take Q seriously and kind of don't. There's variance there too, but I know a couple that I've had conversations with, and it's sad.
Unfortunately, I live in a town that is very primarily Trump supporters, and I've bumped into people in the streets that proselytize Q, like literally passing out pamphlets that it seems like they're almost like the church people, right? They stand in the corner passing out these conspiracy theories. Now, what I really wanted to talk about is back to the first conversation you had, how dangerous it can be to have these beliefs without evidence that's unquestionable, and that we should attack those beliefs because they lead to severe threats against property and against people, and that QAnon isn't a joke. It's something that is actually hurting people, right?
Right.
But the people who believe in it are as dogmatic as believers that believe in God, in the Bible, and all that stuff. So yes, and with even less reason sometimes.
Yeah.
So if you guys could go back in time, like 5 years, and you are put on like a government task force of dealing with conspiracy theories that are potentially violent, like what would your strategy even be?
So this has always been a thing. This has always been an undercurrent, at least in the United States and in the political sphere and stuff. It doesn't. Everybody has always known that this has been a thing. But the problem was, for a while, the stereotype you always saw was, oh, it's just your crazy uncle that lives in a basement. That posts about it on
9/11.
That kind of stuff. That the bread and butter kind of just okay. It was easy to identify because you never meet someone that just believes in one conspiracy theory. It's never just one, typically, right? But I think what we're seeing now is just the narratives that come out of it, not necessarily the original sources, but just the ideas are flowing into mainstream conversation. I think if more people knew about where the stuff was coming from and if it was taken at its source and deconstructed, I think people might better be prepared. A lot of people don't realize that some of the talking points that like the sovereign citizen stuff. If I ask the Q person, hey, do you know what a sovereign citizen even is? Do you know what these people believe? Do you know what they're talking about? I'm guessing a lot of them don't, or at least don't understand it, like the history of this other movement and why they talk about this and the laws that they're citing. Because if you understand the history of something, if you understand where it's coming from, it makes it easier to kind of dismiss and realize that it lacks credibility. But if you think that it's coming from good sources, I mean, that's literally what people think Q is. They think it's coming from a government source, an intergovernment organization of people working to fight against, the deep state, which is also the government, but not the same government. Don't get it confused. I think that would help. But to be honest with you, Joey, I don't know. I think this is something that everybody's been asking and a lot of experts have been asking, and I don't know if there's a clear consensus on what to do, but I'll keep talking about it. I'll keep fighting it.
I have one last that may be a little controversial for you, right? So, like you said, it feels like conspiracy theory endgame, right? Like, let's get a bunch of these conspiracy theories together and have an army of conspiracy that's unbeatable, right? So even if you take away dream, you still have we are a legion, right? So we have more that can stand. I wonder if this is a byproduct of freedom of speech and how the government uses that freedom of speech. Like even having government officials having the freedom to say whatever they want. What do you think about as a means to control this kind of thing, to kind of hinder the speech of government officials, so that if it is demonstrably true that they basically did something akin to perjury, but not in the court of law, just like purposely deceiving the public with that information, that there could be some repercussions to them. So what do you think about that proposition?
Well, I guess I'll go on this first because I want to hear your thoughts too, Joey. But it's like, you know, we do have regulation of our speech already. You can't yell fire in a movie theater. You know, that's one of the things people talk to. People are okay with that. Ostensibly, you can't manipulate the stocks. Although GameStop this week, that whole situation might have something to say otherwise. But like, we already kind of have these rules. I don't think they've been always super enforced. And I don't know even if legislation would be as effective anyway. Like, honestly, Twitter banning the president has been more effective. One of the most effective moves any company has made ever, or any even body has made ever, to curb stop some of this stuff than I don't know if any kind of legislation would, beyond like a massive overhaul of how we do speech everywhere. So is that to say that we need to rely on companies to make these decisions? I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows, but like, I know that they should have done that a long time ago. I think that's true. So yeah.
One of the weirdest things about this month was someone posted a thread of Navalny on Twitter talking about how it was bad precedent to ban Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And seeing something like that, you're just like, shit,
Yeah.
what do we do?
Yeah.
What do we do?
It's not great. I'm not super comfortable with it. You know, like I think it is kind of a crazy precedent. Yeah,
and it has a radicalizing element. I mean, of course, Twitter is an independent company. They can do whatever they want to some extent. And
but look what happened this week. Look what happened this week with you. I'm taking this to current events for those in the future. This is January 29th, 2021. But like, Wall Street bets on Reddit was banned. And, well, they were privated for a while, and tons of stock sites weren't allowing you to buy certain stocks in GameStop. And what happened? People just kept talking about it on Twitter. They kept sharing it on Facebook, and it's still going on as of right now. How effective was it? Even all of these companies trying to do something about it. I don't know. I don't know if there might not be an answer to this.
That's a good point. But it did prevent a bunch of people from buying stock at certain points.
It did. It did. And to be clear, let me say this. I think what Twitter did with the situation with our former president was the right thing to do. I think they should have done it a long time ago. I think it was too late, but you know,
I don't,
but
I still don't even know. I mean, because how would that have changed our perspective of him as a president, to see the way he acts when he just wants to have a direct line of communication? Like, I mean, we probably would have still
we would have seen less of it. I mean, how many tweets did we lament over in these past couple of years of just like, what is going on? What is happening? Like, and we would have seen less of that, at least, you know. I don't know. It's not a solved issue in my mind. I haven't made up my mind on it. And that's all. We're about done with this, Carpe. We got all the callers. Yeah.
Sure. I'll see you guys on Discord. I have a follow-up. See you guys.
All right. Sounds good, Carpe. Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to be the guy that talks about it and then says at the end, yeah, but I don't know. But like, I don't know though. We've talked about this a couple times recently. But I think anybody that says that they completely understand the full ramifications of something like this definitely doesn't know what they're talking about. But at the same time, I'm not one of those absolutists when it comes to free speech. I think I used to be. I think I used to be the person that says absolutely under no circumstances should this be happening. But I've seen it. I've seen a lot these past couple of years where I've seen how the speech is harmed. And I'm like, I think that there has to be something we can do. It's just, it's dangerous. It is dangerous. Yeah.
A lot of that, I mean, there's got to be like antitrust stuff with Facebook and a change of incentive structures, which almost feels like it would need to be a bottom-up thing. Like, imagine telling someone like to pay a monthly fee for social media, but like it didn't have like the awful incentive structures that the current social media platforms do.
There's
like that's
at least one site
unbelievable.
There, I can't remember the name of it, but
case in point.
Yeah, but yeah, it's true. Like the cat's out of the bag. The internet's been, well, it's not free, but it's like the information systems we have are so accessible to the point that they're being abused for their accessibility, and
that abuse is the only way to actually make a profit off of these things. I mean, there are like the few exceptions, like Signal, which is like a non-profit.
Yeah.
But how, like, for example, like Robinhood, that we all learned, we all think Robinhood was a great app, and then we learned this week that they sell our data the way Facebook does, and like they don't prioritize their users' experiences. And you're just like, that of course they don't. That totally makes sense because we're getting this for free.
Here's the point I will make it. I've made this on the show before, I think, but our speech was never free when it came to stuff like Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. We were always subject to algorithms. We were always subject to settings on that site and how that information was presented. The game was rigged from the start. The question is, how are we going to change those rules? Because those rules are already there, and there are always going to be terms and conditions on any site you use. Even if they say there's none, you're still going to be subject to federal laws or international laws. So like there's always going to be something there. So we just got to figure out what it is. What's the best way to do it? I don't know. That's my expert analysis. I don't know. But anyway, we have some other callers I want to talk to. Isaiah is the next one. I went there fast there. Sorry, clip folks. Isaiah is next. We're getting a call from Hawaii too. I don't think we've had a call from Hawaii on this show. Isaiah, what's going on?
Yes, gentlemen. Thanks for having me and hosting this wonderful show. It's a nice rainy day out here, and I'm not in the trees, so happy about that.
Nice. Cool. Well, how can we help you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I would like to get back to real quick the QAnon thing. That is heavily laden with biblical apocalyptic language. It grabs the Christian nationalists right by the cross. I mean, it definitely further weaponized Christianity into like more nationalist, fascist type movements, and that's been working in conservative circles for a while. But no, QAnon is definitely intentionally tapping into just blind faith on the Christian side of things.
So yes, I agree with that, Isaiah. I think I know you have another point to make, but I also want to add on because a lot of people don't realize this. Not only is it tapping into kind of this, kind of fascist undertones here, but it swings the other way too. I cannot tell you how many Instagram, yogi like influencers have also got into QAnon. People who would have never even considered voting the other way before have also got into QAnon because crazy swings both ways, but also like when it comes to like conspiracy stuff, there's conspiracies that go on both sides of the political spectrum, and Q appeals to both of those sides. Absolutely.
Because they believed in karma.
It dissolved.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It all comes back to karma. Just like anyway, Isaiah, I know you, but that's not what you want to talk about. So what's up?
That's right. So I called to talk about truth in mythology.
Okay.
And how I think humanity has known how the universe works before and has constructed mythos and what we call religions to be transmitted downstream through time in more primitive cultures when we have major catastrophes like the comet impacts, for example. There's a huge mythological aspect of our past. But where do you think, like the fallen angels who bring hell to Earth, even the global flood myth that has representation through many different cultures, I think can be traced back to a massive comet impact in the Indian Ocean.
Okay.
That's one side of mythology. That's one side of mythology. The other side is I think that mankind has had a high technological age before, and we had high technology kind of different from ours today. And I know that's more in the pseudo-history, pseudo-geography. But what I like to get into is like the stories of God. Now, it's been anthropomorphized through time, the Abrahamic ideas, and God is always projected as this human ego that has all these wants and gets pissed off about all these things. And I kind of steered completely away from that avenue of inquiry. I was interested in how does a God create? How is this creation? And I use that in the biblical term. I think it's an inherent order that was unfolded from a previous unity. It wasn't just willy-nilly godded into existence out of nothing or anything like that.
Okay.
So
you have there's a lot of different things here. Before we go on,
yeah,
there's like 3 different things that we could talk about, honestly, because I'm a little. Let's go back to number 1. Number 1 was a comet hit the Indian Ocean, and you believe that relates to world mythologies, including angels and other things like that.
Yeah, there are actually 2 main events that I'm thinking of. One was 5,000 years ago. It's called the Burkle Crater in the Indian Ocean. And we believe it's a comet impact. It hasn't been explored because it's 12,500 feet underwater, but we can image it, and it's an 18-mile wide crater.
But what's in it? Purple crater.
5,000.
Burkle.
Burkle.
Right, I'm trying to see. Burkle crater.
And there's even a cuneiform tablet, I believe, is recording an impactor. And this was dated to 5,500 years ago. So it's right in the same area. And it was described as a white bowl that was thrown to Earth.
Okay. So
yeah.
This is in the middle of the Indian Ocean, this comet.
Yes.
It looks like. I'm seeing a picture of it now. And they're saying relatively recent. I'm just reading Wikipedia, circa 3,000 to 2,800 BCE. Okay. So there's a comet that hits the Indian Ocean. And somehow we get angel mythology from this. I don't understand the link there. Where does that come in?
Oh, well, comets, as we see coming in, often in gravity wells, they split up. So it's multi-headed. They're big. Okay. They have big shaggy comas around them, and so they also have a debris trail. So if I were an ancient man, and I think everything that's going on in the heavens is, of course, the action of God and the angels and all this stuff. What does a massive comet flying down out, just coming towards the Earth, hits the Earth, and then its tail comes in, and thousands of shooting stars of tiny meteorites and everything is just not maybe hitting the Earth, maybe not, but just covering the sky with fireballs, and it's this hugely unprecedented event. How would that be mythologized in the ancient minds? And very easily, the rebel angel that was cast out of heaven, that's bringing hell to earth, and his time is short, and all these things just line up right away. Similar legends in Egypt. Sekhmet, the Eye of Ra, was cast down in the form of a lion to destroy wayward man in the flood of blood. And so take a look at where Burkle Crater is. And when it hit, the geologists looking around the area believe it created a 600-foot wall of water that went outward in all directions. Now, the Gulf of Aden and the Gulf of Oman would focus that amplitude of the tsunami into an even higher wave that travels right up the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea, inundating ancient Ur, the Mesopotamian area, Egypt. That would account for the lateral flood damage of the pyramids and the Sphinx, things like that.
Okay, you got a lot to hear. Joey, you want to say something? Real quick?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. So the thesis of this is that there are naturalistic explanations for these mythologies in the Bible, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and other
Yeah.
world religions, I guess, but specifically the Bible, I think is what he's talking about. Yeah,
And then, like, of course, they would choose these conclusions that we don't agree with today because of our scientific advancements.
Yeah. I think that's broadly
a different paradigm.
Yeah, this is kind of. I meant to talk about this more like a couple months ago. I mean, this was almost half a year ago now. I said I wanted to talk about the electric universe stuff because there was this idea about you could see stuff in the aurora lights or what's called the northern lights and stuff, and they said that was actually more present around the Earth at different times, and that's how we kind of got these images. I actually did talk to a physicist friend about it. We didn't fully dig into that as much as I wanted to, but like this relates back to this broader idea of we're calling it pseudo history, right? But like it is like it's not recognized by mainstream academic historians of naturalistic explanations for historical events, right? Which is an interesting way to look at stuff. The thing is, it's hard to really make a pinpoint on it because the religious stories are going to be the religious stories that they are. They're never going to say, "Oh, this is a comet," So
No.
it's unless
through the mythological eye.
Yeah, and so like I don't doubt that we could look at specific stories in different religious stories and point to actual historical events that happen. I have no doubt in my mind that has got to be the explanations for some of those stories out there. It's just mathematically just has to be, right? This is an interesting one. I have never heard this, but there's something about this that rubs me the wrong way, and I think it's because.
This is just a stepping. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so we're looking at a time period of like 3,000. First of all, it's a 29-kilometer, 18-mile long, in American terms, diameter comet. I'm not even sure. Could they, based on where it's at in the ocean, I'm wondering. Yeah, well, the crater was. Yeah, so the crater was. Yeah. So I guess the comet would
travel in excess of 100,000 miles an hour. It passed through that water in less than a second. Now, just imagine flash vaporizing all that water and rock. This huge plume covering the region.
Yeah,
it would be absolute. They think it's universal disaster.
This is what's interesting.
The Earth be destroyed.
Yeah, because like this is a real thing. Like this comet is obviously this crater is obviously real. This event happened. The question is, did it influence human events in any way? And I have no idea if we could ever demonstrate that. I'm trying to think, can we even make a connection there?
Yeah.
Besides
I'd like to go back even further.
Okay.
Even further with the same exact mechanism. So this is going to 12,000 to 13,000 years ago at the end of the Ice Age, called the Younger Dryas, when there was a sudden warming of the planet, and then it cooled again. That's the Younger Dryas period, and then it warmed again. And we had, during that time, we had what's called the flood pulse meltwater pulse, and ocean levels rose 200 feet and then 400 feet. And what is hypothesized, again, this is pseudo-history. It's what we're still trying to piece together is another massive comet impact at the Hiawatha crater up in Greenland. It hit the North American ice cap and flash vaporized all that water. And just another part of history, looking off the coast of Portugal, divers discovered a pyramid that's about 300 feet underwater, and it looks like an Egyptian pyramid. And you can Google underwater.
Okay, so this one is I'm gonna push. I'm already gonna get. Well, I'm not an expert on I guess meteorology would be the weather. So what's the study of meteors? I can't remember. That's a different. But whatever it would be, right? Like this is outside of my depth and expertise, so I can't hold it to be true or not true. Other than I can't make a real judgment because I lack the expertise to it. Other than this wasn't taught in my history books, so I can't really comment on it with any degree. Other than I don't think it's true right now, unless it was given otherwise. But like this one in particular, I know a little bit more about, which is, and this isn't the only site that talks about this. these ideas of these kind of underwater pyramids and stuff. And
they've been found all over China.
Yeah, there's different spots. And I think the reason why we see it all over is because I think there's reason to believe that these are natural formations. Now, I know you might side at that and say, oh, well, you've heard this before. But the problem with examining this stuff is our underwater technology isn't super great, and we can only go under there for certain periods of time, and the data that we get from it isn't as accurate or as great as we want it to be. It's very expensive to do that kind of research and stuff. I have a scuba diver's license. I don't know if y'all knew that. I'm a licensed scuba diver. Now we certified, I guess. Certification is really what it is. But so like they just it's something that people have proposed and have talked about, but we have no records of what these civilizations really would be other than the mythologies of stories and stuff to look at. We have no records of, we've never found like pottery shards and stuff underneath in these things. We're just seeing these structures that kind of look like they're man-made, but also could just be natural formations. So like, it's a little hazy.
They're step pyramids. Some of them are step pyramids. Some of them aren't.
I don't know that they are.
Driving around them.
Well, how do we determine whether they're man-made or whether they're natural formations? What's the difference? How would we know?
Well, probably 90-degree steps, columns that are symmetrical.
There's 90-degree rocks in nature, though. We have limestone formations out here in Texas. If you drive through down to San Antonio, we have limestone deposits all over the place because Texas was underwater several thousand years ago. That's not seeing 90-degree rocks is nothing new.
Well, we know geologically that the oceans were 400 feet lower 13,000 years ago, and the entire glacial melt, however it happened, rose global sea levels by 400 feet. And we have, and not even underwater, we have reasonably sophisticated cities like Göbekli Tepe that were dated back to 12,000, right during this time. And it turns out it's like those huge stones are viewing pathways in the sky. It was an astronomy city. I think they were charting where this impact came from and mythologizing because it was so freaking important. It changed global climate for years to come. That kind of impact. It was total chaos worldwide. And I think, biblically speaking, this is the tohu va bohu in the beginning of Genesis. The earth was a waste and a desolation, and this is why God is mythologized to say, go forth and replenish the earth, because it was plenty before, and then it got absolutely devastated.
Well, I don't know. The
Genesis
account, I don't know, would match up specifically right after the timeline, at least of the crater, based on what I know about history. But that details aside,
of the earth.
Well, details aside, there's creation stories and myths and flood stories and stuff all over. I will grant you that, right? We do have these patterns of flood stories. We do have these patterns of catastrophic events in different ancient cultures. That's undisputable.
Yes.
The question is, not only are the details different in each one of these, but the causes are all over the place. And they have all these different things. So naturally, that's going to be each of their culture's interpretation. If it was like, a worldwide thing, but like, there's just I don't know if the given evidence there is any way to prove that, like, beyond a reasonable doubt. I don't like what is the more likely explanation that individual cultures had stuff happen to them at different times and they wrote stories about it, or there was a one unifying world event that a bunch of civilizations talked about in different ways. Like, I think Occam's razor to me seems like these individual cultures have their own individual stories and, interpretation of the world. I don't know.
Yeah. And anybody on the other side of the world of the comet impact would just experience the ocean rise and darkened skies. They wouldn't see this column of fire in the sky or other things like that. It'd definitely be regionally mitigated. But this is just to get
the same book also talk. When we talk about Genesis, the same book also talks about talking snakes. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's there's a lot of things to it. That have nothing to do with these events.
You go further into that translation. Again, I look at all these things mythologically. The looking at the Bible literally is maybe 5% of my consideration. I look at it through analogy, through metaphor, because that was a major teaching tool, and one of the major teachers of alleged the Bible, Jesus, repeatedly said he teaches metaphor and parable and all this stuff. And then the Greeks, they use their mythological theater and metaphor and parable to teach certain life events and the development of consciousness and things like that. It's a means of conveyance. So I like to go back to even earlier accounts, the Egyptian creation story, the Hindu creation story, and finding much better description and the most ubiquitous and culturally present concept of God throughout antiquity. And it might surprise you, because it's not how we think about God today. I would guarantee most religious believers thinking about God, they say it's this male, it's immaterial, it's this mind that's everywhere, it just thought creation into existence, super smart, science guy, but not really science. Anyway, the further you go back, you find the initial state is described as an infinite absolute, that there was undifferentiated substance before the universe existed, and it filled all space forever.
I don't know.
The mythos genre.
That's a lot. That's a lot to give ancient peoples. I don't think they had specific, I don't know if they were being that specific about it. Do you really think they were being that specific?
Well, I can give you examples. Like Nun or Noon of the Egypt was what existed before the beginning, described as a great watery mass, an infinite watery mass, and then a bubble was made within that mass, and that's where Ra arose on the primordial mound inside that bubble, and it's describing the creation of a space separate from that infinite water. I mean, this genre is so broad, it's called the primordial ocean cosmology. Brahma is described as this infinite that becomes all other things.
I want to reassure you, Isaiah, that I don't think that what you're saying is not it's not completely out of left field to say oh yeah, people have talked about this for sure. It is these stories are really interesting to look at, and I think it's tempting to make these connections, but what really gets me is just that also, one, we're talking about wildly different cultures and wildly different locations that are saying different things, and also at different times, where they aren't all coming exactly around the same time. And so there's just, it's not enough for me. It's not enough for me. There are people that, for example,
I hear you.
You're not saying this, but there are people who are, for example, who will talk about, Muslims talk about this a lot too, but sometimes Christian apologists, they'll talk about the Quran or the Bible. They knew about the cosmology of the universe that we know today. They'll say, oh, look, the Genesis was talking about the Big Bang because, look, here's the formation of this, the formation of that. It's they had no idea about the Big Bang. They didn't know about dark matter. They didn't know about black holes or anything. Okay. That doesn't make sense. And also that the chronology doesn't even make sense because you got, the light coming after whatever. It doesn't make sense to go like that. But you're not talking about that. I know that's not what you're talking about.
Specifics?
You're talking about general themes that we're seeing that could link to one specific event. And I hear you there, but we don't have much more time to take this call, unfortunately. But
that's just the framework for getting to what I'm talking about, of the knowledge of how the universe worked. But prior to 13,000 years ago, that humanity had as a whole, as a global worldwide culture, was fractured. And we get these remnants and these different versions of a very similar story.
See, that's where it's okay,
embedded in that story.
That's an explanation, right? But is there enough evidence to support that explanation for world events? At this point in time, I'm not convinced of that. I've seen Spirit Science. I know what they have to say about it, right? They're talking about the Atlantis civilizations and stuff. And again, you're not saying that, but
I break down directly into geometry and math when I get into the theory of how the infinite makes the finite thing.
Okay, we'll tell you what. We don't have enough time anymore, Isaiah. I have to go to another caller. But if you want to talk about this again,
all right.
Well, next time let's talk about specifically the idea that all civilizations came from one ancient civilization, because that's kind of interesting. And tell you what, I'll look more into this Burkle crater and see what other people have said about this. But I'll tell you this: at the moment, I've heard similar things to this, and I'm not convinced quite yet. I don't think. I think it's a reach. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
next time we talk, I'll start showing you the geometry and mathematical predictions that line up with things we found about this universe with science, like the dark energy versus gravity ratio, like the basic anatomy of atoms, like the standard model of particles.
well, okay, I don't want to talk about numbers. I will tell you that because you can do a lot of things with numbers that don't I don't know that don't really mean what people think they mean. But I would be interested in talking about the first thing I said. Anyway, I gotta get to other calls here, Isaiah. We gotta keep going. But
All right.
appreciate your
Thanks so
call.
much. I appreciate it.
We'll talk to you next time.
All right.
And have a good one.
Thanks for calling.
But that's a lot. That's a lot of information right there.
Yeah.
What do you think, Joey?
I'm speechless now. That was I don't think I still don't understand what the how that should change the way I approach these conversations or the way I live my life. Is it just like a hobby thing to look into these and find these connections?
I mean, I think it's like there's a lot of weird stuff about history that we don't fully understand.
Yeah.
How we got to how we are, and people see themes and different things and commonalities and try to pull everything together because it's easier to make this kind of, well, we were all part of one big thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I obviously Isaiah's looked into this a lot. This is something he's really into, and he's excited to talk about it. But from what I understand about the subject, from the pseudo history that I've looked at and the more popular stuff, there's always some presented thing as fact that isn't really fact, or there's some sort of, idea in history that's not really history, that these little things that get added up. Same thing with conspiracy theories that we talk about today, kind of a misinterpretation of some data points that end up creating a bigger narrative that isn't actually there. And in my judgment, and again, I just had a 10-minute conversation with Isaiah. I don't fully understand his beliefs or know what he means to say about them or what other people have said about them, but I am not convinced of any of it. Only because, again, I've looked at some of this before. If it was under real serious scrutiny, people smarter than me, who are more steady than me, would probably want to know about it and are probably talking about it, unless there's some sort of conspiracy in academia. But, I don't know. That's my take on that. So, angels. Actually, comets. That's now Truth Wanted canon.
I can get on board with that.
God is a snake. Angels are comets. We're building the Truth Wanted universe. This is it. This is the next step. I can't wait to see what happens next. And it's gonna be one big beautiful story.
Wait, floods are still floods, right?
Floods are still floods.
Okay. But as long as we can keep those.
There was a worldwide flood that every religion talked about at one point or another. And that's what Noah, he was part of that too. Anyway, got one more call I want to take to tonight. We're going to go ahead and talk to Mark, who's calling in from North Carolina. Mark, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, what's up, man? Great to talk to you again.
Yeah, how could we help?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make a brief comment. This isn't going to be a very long call, but we were talking about free speech earlier, and I just wanted to point out that when it comes to Twitter censorship or censorship anywhere, you also talked about we're not allowed to yell fire in a movie theater. Slander is also a punishable crime.
That's right. And libel.
Yeah, that's right. So while we here in America may have the freedom of speech, we do not always have the freedom to be heard. That is something that can be taken away if we are, spouting things, inconsistency, violently, if we are advocating for some kind of violent actions or things like that. We could be removed from these public places, right? I mean, it's no different than somebody yelling and screaming in a town hall meeting and then being escorted out.
Yeah,
You know,
it's
akin to that. It's akin to that kind of. It's akin to that.
Yeah, this is kind of an extension of this. Like, there's a consequence to speech, right? Like, you're free to say it, but that doesn't mean there isn't consequence. And like, that's true to an extent. Like, there's consequences now because a lot of us feel the same way about it, but it didn't used to be that way. Like there was a lot of people that were openly and flagrantly racist, and there was no problems with that, right? Like, there weren't any consequences really for doing that because everybody else was also kind of racist. And so, you know, that being an institution in our society.
The people who were against racism in certain places were in the minority, so they didn't have the power to shut the other people up.
Yeah, it's more like if you could have a sign on your door that said "No blacks allowed," and there were no real social repercussions for that outside of, you know, like, you could do that and you could run your business. And obviously people complained, like, eventually we got to where we are now, but like, it wouldn't be the same as if you did that in 2021. If you did that in 2021, someone would take a picture of that, would upload it to Twitter, and then, you know, people would go crazy. But like, that's a result of the values that we have now. So like, I don't know if when we see an injustice, if our own natural consequences, if our own response is going to be enough. And also, there's some stuff that like we can't even control outside of, you know, as like private citizens, right? Like Twitter and YouTube and Facebook, we were talking about this earlier, all have these algorithms that are going to share certain stuff that we would rather not share. I would want to say no. I would want to mute or ban or do something to, but like, unless we manipulate that algorithm in some meaningful way, it's going to go out there regardless. And
right,
we can't change that. Only if you have the access to the switches and buttons in that company, you know, we can't change that, even though there's going to be real harm. And that's already been demonstrated. There's already evidence of that. So that's why I'm thinking more about this and thinking, yeah, maybe companies do have a responsibility. Maybe there is a corporate responsibility. I'm more open to that now than I was before, but I could be wrong. And maybe it's not the best way. I don't know. Joey, what do you think?
Yeah. I would agree. You know, we went down this before. It's like, we want to minimize harm. And we, especially with stuff like Snowden, we also know the capabilities of the government to do things we disagree with, and of the importance of a free media. And of course, I can't remember if I've brought it up on while we were live, but manufacturing consent and what that means. Like, we've always said, like, or the lefties always say, just these tools that are used to censor the dangerous right wingers will also be used in ways that are to censor just progress on the left. And this is where a lot of it's like, it feels like one of the ways forward is to have a lot of the individual difficult conversations outside of this, and the de-radicalizations of these troubled people, as well as doing putting pressure on these companies. I mean, if someone's and the squad has talked about this a lot, you know, they've gotten death threats so many times on the internet, and nothing comes of it. Like, to pretend that there is a a board of people on Twitter protecting their users from these threats of violence, that's just totally not the case. Like, when something blows up, it gets dealt with in a nice, proper PR way, but it's not they're not actually, I don't know, they're not our friends. And
have historically not been the people, the ones. We're not the protected ones, right? The average user in general isn't the protected ones. It seems like there's a profit motivation. I don't. That's just. It sounds cynical. It sounds awful, but there is so much evidence of that. I don't know why anyone would think otherwise at this point. Now, I did see this week. I don't know if you saw this, Joey, but Facebook is officially not recommending any political. I think it was political groups on Facebook, or they're not doing it, showing up in any of their ads, which is interesting. That's one way to do it, because I will say this: out of all the social media sites, Facebook has definitely been one of the most responsible for aggregating the greatest number of QAnon supporters. There were so many QAnon groups before they tore a lot of those down this past year that, again, just way too little, way too late. People were already radicalized and people were already ready for the attack that just happened recently.
But
so
do you remember when the YouTube rabbit hole thing happened and got publicized, and they talked about there was a time where they would steer you if you started to go down something that wasn't normal neoliberal order. They would like try to bring you back, like watch some CNN, watch some MSNBC, like this is what you really need to be doing. Like these nudges also hurt the left and the type of criticism that we are trying to cultivate. So
the YouTube stuff's crazy too, because that was happening for so long and they still didn't change stuff until like a couple months later, I think. That was like 2 years ago now, I think. I don't want to be inaccurate in any of my statements about it, but that was the thing that happened, right? What you're talking about, for those who aren't aware, is it was just discovered that a lot of conspiracy videos were being recommended at a pretty rapid rate, along with other not so savory stuff that I wouldn't dare mention on air. And it was, a marked path, a trail was blazed for radicalization. It was right there on YouTube and had been there for a while. So,
and I do want to clarify. I think that is awful, and we need to do everything we can to not create these. It's the incentive structures that result in that being what the algorithm chooses. Like, there's some line of succession of videos that makes you glued to the screen and turns your brain into a bowl of mush. And
well, here's what we do, Joey. We write to YouTube and we say, "Dear YouTube, I want all of the videos to point to Truth Wanted episodes. Every single video on YouTube should be a couple of degrees separation from Truth Wanted." And then
if they disagree,
they'll be fine.
Well, and if they disagree, you say, "Oh, you hate truth." Okay.
Oh, you hate truth. Are you violating my free speech right now? That's what I'll just say.
And they'll be like, "No, it's not. No, we'll do it."
Well, here's something to point out. Just real quick, Dan, is that even on your own stream, you have a moderator deleting messages.
Yes,
right? It's the same concept. If you are on this platform, if you are speaking to these groups of people, you don't have.
Here's the difference, though. I have a stream of a couple hundred different people watching. I don't own a multi-billion-dollar social media platform with millions of users. I think that's kind of different, because I'm totally fine with moderators doing their job and getting people out that aren't going to contribute to the discussions and goals that we have as a group here. But if we want to do this on a mass scale, where we're regulating what has essentially become a public utility at this point, right? Because who doesn't have at least one social media account, even if they're not using it, it's out there, then that becomes a different conversation, I think. But mods doing their jobs on this stream. Good job, mods. Shout out to the mods. Thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes.
But I hear what you're saying, Mark. It's
behind the scenes over there at Truth Wanted.
Yes, go and everybody on the Facebook group as well. You guys are awesome. That fan page, which we'll link in just a second. But Mark, we got to wrap up the show here. Thanks for calling in about this.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
I hope to hear from you a different time. But yeah, we're getting to the tail end of another episode of Truth Wanted. I want to thank my special guest here, Joey Krieger, for being on the show tonight. Joey, where can people find you at?
The only thing that I care to spend more time on and promote is my childhood YouTube channel. It's called, my username is Baser75. I still use it. I still post videos, sometimes of me doing these little video essays, sometimes me and some new songs that I've written. And I think it's the best form of social media, and I hate everything else, which is why I'm not promoting it. Well, I don't want to spend any more time on it.
If anything, I think people should also go watch you in that video again. 6 atheists versus 1 secret Christian. It's like 15 minutes long. It's really funny. Go watch it and think about the representation there. Again, going back to that a bit. I thought they were going to tokenize atheists a lot more than they did in that video. But I was satisfied by the end of it. And also, you're just really funny in that. So, yeah, go check it out.
Well, you're one of the few people who don't think I'm an asshole.
Well, I mean, we'll have to check the comment section after this video.
And that's what I'm going to do all night.
Oh, well, that's not healthy. But you do what you want to do. This is, again, Truth Wanted, folks. Hey, thanks for watching the show. Again, this show is live every week at Friday at 7 p.m. Central. So if you're not catching this live, you should come on down. Like I said, we got a chat going on. It's really neat. I enjoy doing this. There's a couple different ways to support the show. One of the ways is through patreon.com/truthwanted. Again, all of the money that gets donated there goes towards the show. I don't personally get any of it. It helps towards getting equipment and doing all those kinds of crazy stuff to get this show going every single week. So please consider that as well. There's other ways to support the show. One of it is also being a YouTube member. So if you're in the chat and you see some cool little Dan emojis, they are available to do as well if you look at that. Another way to support the show is through our merch store. The link for that is going to be in the description. There is on screen. It's bit.ly/AEN merch. That's bit.ly/AEN merch. We got the shirts, hoodies, stickers, masks, all kinds of stuff. So check it out if you haven't already. I want to give a shout out to the Facebook group, the Truth Wanted fan group. It's pretty hype. It's pretty chill and everything in between. It's really, really cool. You guys should check it out there. You can also find me on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan. You can also email the show. It's truth@atheist-community.org. And those are 2 really good ways to get in touch with me. Last but never, ever, ever least, I want to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, spectacular, stupendous crew that helps make this show happen every single week. There's our crew cam. We got a spooky plague doctor, a man trapped in a green room, and all kinds of stuff going on there. So yeah, thank you, crew. They help make this thing happen every single week, and they are awesome for it. Don't tune out just yet, folks. We're going to go into the after show Discord. So if you're watching this live, be sure to go to the Discord channel, and Joey and I are going to be there. But Joey, you have any final words before we wrap up today's show?
Go vegan if you feel like it. Up for it. Is that what you wanted me to say?
God damn it, Joey! I didn't want you to say anything.
I'm just kidding. That's
well,
funny. I'm not kidding, but I'm always 100% joking and 100% serious. That's the only way I go through life.
Pushing the vegan agenda on my platform, Joey.
I'm sorry. I don't have a real platform. This is my only opportunity.
I'm just kidding. We love you, Joey. Thanks for being on the show. And thank you guys for watching Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and I'll see you next time.